Are you thinking of buying a Sony APS-C camera but you're not sure which lens to pair it with? Or maybe you already own a Sony camera such as the a6400 or the ZV-E10 and you're looking for an all-round lens that you can pair it with to do everything you need. Well, if you fall into one of those camps, then I might have the lens just for you. This is the Sigma 18-50mm f2.8 for Sony APS-C E-mount cameras. And I'm going to talk about why I love it and why it might be the lens you're actually searching for. To give you some context, I recently picked up the Sony ZV-E10 along with this lens as a B cam for my Sony a7C, and it's proving to be an excellent combo. In fact, we're actually filming this segment on it right now. So getting straight into it, first of all, just look at this lens. In my opinion, it has a beautiful understated design with the matte black finish, the uniform thickness of the lens, and the general compact size. Might not be a popular opinion, but personally I think it looks slightly reminiscent of a Leica Q2 when it's attached to the Sony ZV-E10, which is pretty cool. The Sigma's not only small, but it's also light, coming in at only 290 grams or 0.64 pounds. If you pair this with the ZV-E10, it only totals at 633 grams or 1.4 pounds, which is really nice and light and means that it's kind of a really perfect travel camera lens combo if you just want to go somewhere with just the one lens. And if you want to put a filter on the end of the lens, then it uses a 55mm filter thread. The lens has a full frame equivalent zoom range of 27 to 75mm with a constant f2.8 aperture. This is an excellent range considering the size of this lens, and the fact it has a constant wide aperture makes it even better. Plus, if you have a camera that supports clear image zoom or crop mode like the ZV-E10 does, then you can actually extend that reach to the full frame equivalent of 112.5mm. And that's while maintaining 4K in the video mode, which makes this a really versatile lens for video work. When talking about the zoom range, we definitely can't shy away from the fact that at its widest, this lens is the full frame equivalent of 27mm, which for some just might not be wide enough. However, for myself, this is definitely wide enough because I'm mainly going to be using it for talking heads like this, for accompanying B-roll shots and for product shots. However, if you're planning on picking up this lens for vlogging specifically, I definitely recommend that you think twice about it. This lens has no inbuilt stabilization, so unless you own a camera such as the Sony a6600 that has in-body image stabilization or IBIS, then you are going to be stuck with using digital stabilization. What makes this more difficult, especially with the ZV-E10, is that the ZV-E10 has active digital stabilization that you can turn on or off, but when you have this on, it puts an additional 1.44 times crop on top of the 1.5 times APS-C crop. This means that the lens comes out at its widest at about 38mm, which is definitely not ideal for handheld vlogging if you want to see your whole face and not just your nose. Saying that, the active stabilization on the ZV-E10 does do a pretty good job of actually stabilizing the footage if you're not concerned about the crop. And there's also the option with the ZV-E10 of gyro stabilization, which you can do in post to actually stabilize your footage if that is causing you issues. I actually talk about more about gyro stabilization in this video just up here if you want to check that out. Just want to jump in here and say that if you are enjoying this video so far, then please hit that like button. It really helps spread the video to people who might benefit from watching it. And also, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. So vlogging aside, there are so many other good things about this lens. The zoom ring is firm enough that when you're walking around with it, it's not going to shift focal lengths on its own. But when you do actually want to zoom in and out, it's nice and smooth. And the same goes for the focus ring really, because it strikes the right balance of smoothness and firmness so that when you accidentally hit it, it's not going to shift focus. Just as a note here, the lens doesn't seem to be parfocal. And if a lens is parfocal, that means that when you zoom in and zoom out, the focus point of the lens won't change. However, with this lens, it does seem to change very slightly when you zoom in and zoom out, so you'll have to make sure that you refocus the lens each time you do this, if you are using manual focus. However, this isn't a feature I'd expect from a lens of this price, but I thought I'd include it for the sake of completeness. In terms of focusing, the autofocus on this lens is snappy and accurate, and definitely makes the most of Sony's excellent autofocus system. Editor Aaron here, just wanted to jump in and say that I noticed a little quirk with active stabilization on the ZV-E10, where it causes this lens to kind of hunt or look like it's hunting focus. Whereas I think this is just active stabilization within the ZV-E10 not kind of working properly or causing a bit of a quirk, because when I turn off all stabilization on the ZV-E10 and kind of did some tests with the autofocus, it was perfect every time. So I think this is internally to the ZV-E10 and I don't think it should be cause of concern, but if you are planning on using this with the ZV-E10, just note that the autofocus might be a little bit less accurate when you're using active stabilization with it. Okay, back to the video. It also has a minimum focus distance of only 12.1 centimeters or 0.39 feet, which is really close, and it helps you get some really nice macro shots. This is also really helpful for me when I want to get really close up detailed shots of products in B-roll shots. Moving on to the image quality of the lens, and there's no point having a lens as versatile as this if you're going to get soft or inconsistent quality throughout the focal range. Fortunately, this lens performs really well, being consistently sharp in the center of the image at all focal lengths and apertures. However, just to note, at f2.8 there is some slight softness in the corners. This will only be an issue if you are doing photography. If you're shooting video, it really is negligible and won't cause an issue at all. And you're able to improve the sharpness of the corners by just stopping down to around f5.6 to f11. One thing to note here is that this lens only boasts 7 aperture blades, but in my opinion the bokeh balls still end up being pretty round and quite pleasing to the eye. However, if you are obsessed with round bokeh balls, then you should probably go with a lens with 9 or 11 aperture blades instead. However, generally this lens performs really well in terms of bokeh. The out of focus areas and the roll off from in focus to out of focus looks pretty pleasing in my opinion, and there's not too much busyness in the out of focus areas. So generally I'd say that this lens performs really well considering the compact size and the fact it's a zoom lens, and also considering the really good price for this lens. Which brings us quite smoothly onto how much this lens will cost you. The Sigma will set you back £429 in the UK or $549 in the US. And considering how versatile this lens is with the focal range, as well as the excellent build quality and design and the image quality, I'd say this is a very fair price for this lens. Of course, if you do want to pick one of these up, then I've put a link down in the description for you there. So let me know down in the comments if you are going to pick up this lens for your camera bag. And if you're looking for a camera to pair this lens with, I'm going to make a review of the Sony ZV-E10, which I'll put right here. If it's not there right now, that's because I haven't made it yet, but it will be coming soon. So click or tap on that, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll catch you guys over there. Cheers!